Hi everyone. In this video, I want to talk about the upcoming release of Cortex 1.5. Um, and honestly, Cortex 1.5 is probably the biggest release we've done since the very first time we released Cortex. I'm really excited about it. It's a lot of features driven by feedback from all of you, lots of bug fixes. Um, for bugs that were found by all of you, and more realistically, they're edge cases dealing with things that I didn't even know you could do in Cherwell in some cases. Um, so 1.5 is a huge release for making sure that Cortex reads your Cherwell database the way that it's supposed to be read, the way that Cherwell works on the database, and accounting for a lot of the things that either you or Cherwell partners that you've worked with um, have done with the database. Some of the common ways of configuring different business objects and BizOb forms with each other um, I found these things as I've been installing Cortex on your systems, all of your systems, um, and discovering that there were things that I wasn't accounting for that, the more systems I install it on, the more I'm going to encounter them. So I'm really excited about this 1.5 release, and I hope after I show you all of it, you'll be excited about it as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what's going to be in that release later on in the video. We're not actually going to demo all of the features right now because actually they're not all done yet. Um, but I am still committing to 1.5 having all of those features and being the biggest release we've had in possibly ever, um, because all of these things are super important, um, and they're close enough that I can actually commit to them being done in a short, well-known time frame. Um, but in this video, I do want to do a little bit of a demo. So I'm going to demo some smaller things that I've been working on. And then toward the end of the video, we'll actually talk about some of the bigger ones. Let me switch over to demo mode. All right, so you can see my screen. Um, and for the most part, it looks pretty much the same. But let's take a look at incident. I'm just going to look at any incident. And you'll notice that the description box looks a little bit different. Now, description is a rich text field, and up to this point, I've been showing it as a just a plain text field. So that was kind of a problem. On incident, you don't really notice, other than the font is really small because whoever entered this incident made it really small. But if you look at something like knowledge article, let's just look at that one. Now, all of a sudden, you have images, and that's because they are part of the rich text version of the field, and not part of the text version of the field. Um, Another thing that I've been working on is if we go over to event, and I have to pick a very specific record for this one. We'll go to security event 334. You'll notice that it has a change request tab, and that's because of this relationship. This one actually has a change request associated with it. Now, in this particular case, um, this tab is unique, and as far as I can tell, so far I haven't found any other business object that has a tab like this. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it certainly probably exists in many of your systems. Um, but this overview tab shows data from the same business object, just from a different form. Okay, that was fairly easy to uh, account for. Journals obviously shows uh, many items through a relationship, and that's the other major case. So it's either information from the same record, just a different form, or uh, information in a grid going traversing a relationship. But change request is actually a one-to-one relationship, and it shows a BizOp form for a completely different record, like, by traversing a relationship. So initially, I wasn't accounting for this. Well, now I am. Before, you would actually see, I think, no data on this tab. And that it didn't look broken. It just looked missing. Um, Now it no longer looks like it's missing data because the data is showing up here. And again, this is a oh, wanna cry. Wow, that brings back memories. Um, this this is also a rich text field. Now, there are a few other things that I've added over the last few days, few weeks that I can't actually demo in this particular environment. Um, I am handling uh, group member and group leader um, relationships and fields a little bit better. In a lot of cases where this was coming up was um, either grids or comparisons. Um, it was sometimes it's tricky uh, to get those to work quite right because sometimes you have a condition on, say, a group member, but it uses a field from a group leader to do the comparison. And this might not be something you did knowingly. This might be just be something that Cherwell does behind the scenes. Um, but making sure that I can find what I need to find by going to the group leader or the group member whenever it needed to happen. Um, I had to do that in a few different places to make sure that everything uh, worked well. Um, there were a few other places where queries were being constructed in ways that could lead to ambiguity in the SQL. Um, and now I'm being a little more verbose in how I'm doing that, so we shouldn't run into any issues with that. Let's see, I'm just looking through my list of things that I've done over the last few days. Got inline images and rich text. Um, oh, another one. I can't show it in this database, which is really unfortunate. Um, but I'm told that something in the 8 dot whatever 8.x um, out of the box content, a common thing to do and a common thing to do in new implementations at about that time was to create a form and then create an embedded form or display an embedded form in that form and have the specific choice of form that was displayed key off of some expression. So it might be a different status, it might be different users viewing the form, that sort of thing. In the 8.x, I believe this was the change form. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the change request form that did this. Could have been others as well, um, but specifically the change request form had a sidebar that was part of the main form, and then the right hand side was an embedded form that was driven by an expression. Now this is different from how specific forms worked on the incident form because specific forms are part of a relationship. There's a relationship relating the specifics record to the incident, and so that embedded form was traversing a relationship. Um, there are also obviously the form arrangement tabs, which we talked about already. Sometimes they traverse relationships. Sometimes they are just the same record, just a different form. Those were already being accounted for. Um, but in this case, it was uh, the same record, but the form chosen by an expression, which was yet another case that I wasn't accounting for. So that's in there. Um, Basically, just churning through all of these different styles of building up content. Now, I did promise that I would talk about the major features huge features that are going into Cortex 1.5. In addition to all of these little but important fixes, tweaks, that sort of thing. So the three major features that are going into Cortex 1.5. One we've already seen. I'm pretty sure it was the last video, uh, and that's kind of user management and being able to update and edit the security groups that are associated with users. Um, so if someone joins your organization, leaves your organization, you can update the security group that's associated with that user, or even add a user to the system without changing all of the Cherwell data. So if you haven't seen that video, go check that out. If I remember when I'm posting this, I'll leave a link down in the description below. The second major feature, which isn't quite done yet, is the ability to see how various pieces of your Cherwell system were built. So not just the data that's in your Cherwell system, and not just being able to see the BizOp forms, the BizOp records, and all the grids and the form arrangements, but actually being able to see behind the scenes of how some of these things are put together. And we're starting with one steps. And basically the use case for this is, let's say you're using your new system. Uh, Maybe you're going to build everything out that you have in Cherwell in your new system. Maybe you're going to start with one particular process and eventually go back and potentially add in some of the other processes you're using Cherwell for. At some point in time, you might want to know how you did something in Cherwell for whatever reason. If you didn't implement it in the new system yet or at all, then you might want to go back and see, okay, so how did we implement that thing in Cherwell? Maybe we want to implement it the same way in the new system. Or you suspect that there's a bug in your new implementation, and you want to go back and see how it was implemented in Cherwell and see if you can, do an apples to apples comparison. Or maybe you have changed your process and the new system is working totally fine. That's not the problem. You just want to find out how you were doing it back when you were using Cherwell. And in that case, you want to see how the one step was constructed. Well, that'll be happening. And we'll also extend it to saved searches, because we already have the ability to run saved searches. And depending on how it goes, we might even be able to extend that to things like dashboards. I'm not going to promise that. There are lots of things in Cherwell that we can certainly peek behind the scenes of. But we're definitely going to start with saved searches, because it's already there, and one steps, because that's probably the biggest thing that people are going to want to see behind the scenes of. So that's major feature number 2. Now, major feature number 3 is, and I will be honest, if there's anything that gets pushed to Cortex 1.6, it's going to be this feature. But I really want to get it into Cortex 1.5. That's the ability to access external data sources. Now, at a minimum, what we're going to do is kind of disable and any attempts to query to an external data source, external business object, external data connection, that sort of thing, just so that the UI doesn't break. It might mean that things might look like they're missing from forms. The big use case for this is just a loop back connection to the Cherwell system to get at some of the information in the defs. So you might, for instance, not see team listed or a list of attachments. That's a common use case. So I don't think it's the end of the world. You guys let me know. Drop a comment below if you have strong opinions on this. But at the very least, in 1.5, we'll just prevent the UI. We'll prevent Cortex from trying to make those external queries, because it won't be able to, and things will break, and that's bad. So basically defending against things that we know we aren't able to do. So all of the data that's inside of Cherwell, inside of the database backup that Cortex is connected to, uh, will show up exactly the way it's supposed to. But links to external data, at a very least, they won't break the UI. I would like to get to a point where we're actually running those queries. Um, and but basically, what has to happen is we'll have to provide a way. It'll be very similar to how we allow you to update security groups, but we need to provide you a way to kind of update that configuration, update that external connection, so that we can actually connect to the proper machine, because obviously Cortex is going to be running in a different environment than Cherwell was. So we need to provide you a way to either disable that connection because you actually don't want it to run, or update the configuration. Like in the case of a loopback connection, in that case, we might be able to just make a special case and say, this is a loopback connection and, you know, easy peasy. Or, uh, determine what you want to do for that connection. So for instance, let's say you want to take a snapshot of what the data looked like in that external system when you were using Cherwell, and then point this external connection at, maybe another database in the same SQL server as has all your Cherwell data. Because, that data might be changing, right? You might not want to have uh, Cortex with old Cherwell data pointed at your production CMDB, and as machines come in, machines go out. You don't want an old ticket an old ticket looking at a machine that now looks like it's been decommissioned, because that's not entirely true. It is true that maybe the machine has been decommissioned, but at the time when the ticket was written up, when you were using Cherwell, the machine was up and running, right? So still thinking through exactly the mechanics of that, but the goal is to make that as flexible as possible so that uh, all the data still makes sense for all the use cases that people are using Cortex for. So all that being said, I've talked for a while. If you have thoughts on this, leave a comment down below, shoot me an email, come to the Cortex users group. I didn't mention that at the beginning of the video, but come to the Cortex users group every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. There's a link down in the description for a way to get an invite to that. Love to have you. You can talk to other people who are using Cortex, other people who are thinking about using Cortex. I'll show you sneak peeks behind the scenes of what I'm working on in Cortex, and in some other stuff that I'm getting into. So that's pretty cool. You may have seen drips and drabs on the channel of some of that already. But yeah, if you want to talk, contact information down in the video description. And thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one, because those two features that we haven't demoed yet on the channel, those demos are coming soon. Next week, it'll be all about feature number 2, which has slipped my mind. And after that, it'll be all about, oh yeah, okay, so feature number 2, it'll be all about looking behind the scenes of one steps, and feature number 3 will be all about looking into external data. So that's what's coming soon. That's what's coming in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully you're as excited about that as I am. I'll see you next week. I'm going to get some sleep, because obviously I need it if I'm forgetting what the next features are in my own software. Later.